Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's Wednesday webinar. Today, we are going to be covering CRM business process flows, and let's get right into it here. One of the things to talk about with a business process flow is that it really is just a visualization of whatever business process you have set in place for the type of record we're dealing with. So however your company handles an opportunity from start to finish, your business process flow would just visualize the different steps you expect your end users to take. Some of the benefits of using a business process flow include creating a guide for your end users. It can help eliminate the amount of training that's required to get someone up and running in the system. And it also can help your end users as kind of a to-do list or task list, just to keep them going through, okay, here's what I do first, and then what I do next. It just helps to lead them through what is required of them. Another important thing is making sure that all information is being gathered. There are certain things you need if you're selling an opportunity that has to be passed off to a production team or a fulfillment team, depending on the type of service or product that you're selling. And sometimes that can fall through the cracks between like sales and production, or if you have like a marketing team doing leads and handing it off to your sales team, some of those bits of information can get lost, adding to a back and forth email or calls being needed. And having a business process flow can just help to require that information to ensure that it's getting gathered on the onset and eliminate some of that back and forth. Another big thing is just consistency in records. Each record is handled the same way. If you create a business process flow, it just helps to make sure that overall everything's being done the same way. It gives your customers kind of a consistent feel to how they're handled, no matter who's handling, if it's an opportunity or like a customer service case. It just gives that consistency, which is so important to keeping your customers satisfied. Some things about the business process flow here is when you're creating it, you have a set of stages that you'll start with. And then each of your stages includes steps, actions, or workflows. Steps all are centered around data fields that are housed in your records. And actions and workflows are things that you also create when you're customizing the system. You can have multiple business processes for a single entity. So you can have 2 or 3 business processes with your opportunities or any of the entities that you have or records. It can also cross entities. So you can have a business process flow that starts with a lead, moves into an opportunity, maybe even like an invoice or quote, and then comes back and closes the circle. And you can also define them by security role. So this is really where you can help guide your end users. If you have a general manager opening an opportunity, maybe they don't have to go through the same approval process as one of just your sales professionals would. So maybe you would want a different business process flow so they don't have to just click through the steps that don't apply to them. You can use this in multiple different ways depending on how granular you want to get with your business process flows. Some of the limitations to talk about. So 10 activated business process flows, that is the max per entity. I have not yet seen anyone use that many because things can get quite confusing when you start having a bunch of different process flows. I've usually seen a max of like 2 to 3, but the system allows for up to 10 per entity or record type. You can have up to 30 stages in the process flow. And then when you're crossing entities, so like I talked about, going from a lead to an opportunity to like a quote or an invoice or something like that, you can have up to 5 entities. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into the demo so you can see how you would go about building a business process flow, and that can really give you a feel for where it can be helpful. So within your CRM, there's 2 ways to access your business process flows. When you're up here on the main menu, you can go to settings, and some versions do have this process center that houses all of your processes. And if you go here, this is where you can create a new business process flow. If you do not have that, it lives in the customizations tab. So under settings, if you go to customizations and customize the system, you can also create new business process flows in here. And it's about version 9 to 9.1 where you'll start to see that process center. Otherwise, older versions, you will have to go to the customization tab here. Okay, I'm going to close down these entities here. And here's where the processes lives in your customization tab. So we're just going to click on new to create a new business process flow. And we're going to go ahead and do the test business process flow here. When choosing your category, you will choose a business process flow. And then you choose the main entity. So I know we've talked about it can cross entities, but you want to choose the one you're going to start with. So in this case, we're going to do an opportunity one. And when we click OK, it's going to pull up the desktop here that we're going to go ahead and create our business process flow on. So you see it automatically brings up the first stage. And here, when you're creating the business process flow, you can start with stages and you can also create conditions. So let's go ahead and do our first stage. And we're going to say, this is when we want to qualify the opportunity. And then there are some categories that CRM has in here. So we're just going to choose the type of category. And this, they actually have a qualify one here. And this is our main entity that we've chosen. This is one you start with. So it says opportunity here. We're going to go ahead and apply that. Now you can see where our stage is listed. And now we really want to get into the details. What do we want to have happen within this stage? And you have three choices. You can do a data step, a workflow, and an action step. So with a data step here, you can select from any of the fields that you have available for this type of record. So the fields do have to already exist within, your opportunity or account for wherever you're creating the business process flow, but they do have to be created. So if there's something new you want to have people like check off a box, maybe they need to verify this with pricing supervisor or something like that. You do need to have that field created before you can use it in a business process flow. So within here, for the qualify, we're going to add a few ones. We're going to say we want them to confirm the interest, and then you can choose if it's going to be required or not. And that really is what is the data you absolutely want them to gather. So we're going to say we want to add confirm interest, and then you can just keep pulling it over here. We want to add another data step. This one, we want to require them to get the budget amount, and we want it to be required. And then we're going to go ahead and let's add probability. I think that's a good thing here. Okay, so we've got a few data steps. These are things that will be required for them to enter. And once we're done creating this, we'll take a look at how it actually looks within the opportunity. But we also had mentioned that you can add workflows within your business process flow. So the exception with that is with a workflow, it must be created as an on-demand workflow and it already has to exist within your system. So you have to have created that. I've created one for us to work with here just as a test so you can see how adding a workflow in works. But we're just going to pull over workflow here. And we want the trigger to be either when it enters that stage or when it exits. We're going to say right away when it enters. And then here's where we can search for the workflows that we want to use. So this is the workflow I created for today. And we're going to apply that. And now we've created our first stage. And you're going to follow the same process for each stage that you want to create, whether that's 3 stages or up to 30. This is just the same process you'll follow. Now this condition option, you can put in here instead of a stage to check a condition. So for example, if you want to say the owner of this opportunity equals a certain value, you could select a certain owner, and then you can create 2 different pathways. Or if you have different processes, maybe depending on like a division or a department, you can put in if this condition is met, you go down this path, otherwise you'll go down this path. And once you create these branches, pulling the new stages is just pulling it over to the plus signs wherever you want to insert it. We're not going to get super fancy with ours here, so I'm just selecting them and I'm going to delete these out. We're just going to create a very basic business process flow. So let's get our next stage here. And this one, we're going to go ahead and say after we've had the salesperson gather the data, we want to send it for pricing. And we'll say with this one, we'll put it in a develop stage or category, excuse me, sorry. Once you've done your first stage, it does open up the following stages for you to choose other entities if you're crossing entities. But again, we're just making a very basic one. So we're going to apply this and we're going to have our pricing stage. And I'm just going to add a couple of data steps in here. It always defaults with one, but I want two, so that's why I created a new data step. And we're going to say we want them to add the estimated revenue. And we are going to have them fill out when the final proposal is ready. Okay, so those are our two data steps for pricing. And I always recommend when you're creating a business process or thinking about creating one, you want to consider each stage to be like a touch point within the record. So for example, in this one, in the qualify, that's the salesperson we want gathering that data. And then we want to turn it to whoever's responsible for the pricing. And then here, after all the pricing is done, we want to turn it back over to the salesman and be like, okay, here's everything. Now go deliver this proposal to the customer. And again, this is personalized for every company, but just to kind of give you an idea of a way that you could use this. So now the next one we're going to say is proposal. And we're going to put it within the proposed category. And we're going to have a couple data steps in here. Let's say we want them to have to schedule a proposal meeting. And then we're going to say we want them to have a step for when they have presented the proposal. Okay. And then I'm just going to add one more stage in here so we can take a look at it on an opportunity. The last stage I'm going to have is just waiting to close. Okay, and for this, the only field I'm going to require to have in this is an estimated close date. Okay, so we've created a very basic business process flow here. Now, when you're creating this, you can edit your security roles. So this is what we had talked about, where you could have different processes for different levels within the company. So if you go to edit security roles, oops, sorry, we have to save and activate this first, I'm sorry. Let's save it. We're going to activate it here. We're looking for it to say enable security roles, so that's just why it's a little different. And it's just taking a moment to activate. It usually does take a little bit to think when you're activating a process. The same happens with any workflow that you create. When you're deactivating as well, a lot of times it will go through this. It does appear to be a little stuck here, so I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. And we're going to try and activate it again. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and we've got it saved and it validated, so we're good there. My computer just may be kind of acting up a little bit here, as it usually does when you demo this. Let's go ahead. I'm going to close this out. Once you've saved a process, it is viewable here either in the processes on this customizations tab, or where with the newer versions you go to your process center. We can see here's the processes that we have, and the one we were just working on was this test business process flow, and it looks like it did activate, but it didn't give us the OK screen there at the end. So I apologize for my computer glitch there, but it did go through and activate. So let me go ahead and pull that up again so we can see it. Perfect. So now we can see that it is activated. If we wanted to deactivate it, the option is here. You can also order the process flows. So we can see that we have 3 different process flows for the opportunity forms. You can pick the order you want them to appear in, and the one that's at the top is the one that is the default when you first order an opportunity. So let's go ahead and let's pull up an opportunity and take a look at what this process flow is going to look like for us. And I'm just going to pull up one of the opportunities that we already have in here. And you can see this is not the 4 stages that we had created. This opportunity was previously created with this default business process flow. So what we're going to do is up here on the white toolbar, we're going to select to switch the process. And we're going to select our test business process flow. And then here we can see these are the 4 stages that we created. So anytime you create a business process flow, you want to think about what you want to be at top. Not only the required information, but the fields will then pull up right here at the top of the opportunity or the lead, whichever record you're in. And you can see it has the red asterisk for the ones we've required. And then you can just move through the stages. So here, we had already entered the different things for, yes, we've confirmed interest, budget amount, and probability. And you just go through to next. Oops. It's going to require me to do it again. So let's go through. Oh, I'm going to have to change that. I have it where it's saying to select no. We just move through the stages here, and the flag moves with us, and it tells you how long it is active within that particular stage. So now we can see it's been active for 1 minute in pricing. We have the things that are required to be entered. You keep going through next stage, and this is why it can act like a to-do list. Now, one of the things that we had done, not only did we have our stages set here, but one of the things was to trigger a workflow. So I'm just refreshing the record here so you can see. Let's go ahead. Now in my workflow, the workflow I created, all it did was create a task here that gives a due date for when the proposal was due to the customer. So you can see that the workflow still triggered when we entered this qualify stage. And as you keep going through the business process flow, you can keep going to next stage if you've completed what's required of you here. So you need to schedule the proposal meeting in this one, and we'll say we presented the proposal, and you just keep going through next stage. Once you get to the end, you can finish the process. All it really does to finish the process just gives you a little check mark like, yep, we've done everything. You still can close the opportunities after this point in time. Finishing it does not close or deactivate a record for you. It simply marks the process as finished. You can always reactivate a process at a later time. So if it's showing finished here up on this process in the white toolbar, you can reactivate it. But really the big takeaways for this is really to think through your business processes. I like to use, like I had mentioned before, touch points. So you can say, okay, once the salesperson's done with it, who do they hand it off to? And then you can create workflows around it to also notify the next person. Or you can have these stages to filter a list of records by. So you could be, show me all opportunities within the proposal stage. Or, you can gauge then where are things getting delayed, how long are things aging in different categories. And it can also help you then track the efficiency of whatever your business process is. So now with that, that really is business processes in a nutshell there. If you guys have any questions, you can certainly reach out to me at any point in time, and we could look at how your business process as you have it now, how we could work that into CRM, or if you have any questions about, a little more complex ones like the conditional and branches. When you're getting into branches, that's pretty similar in limitations with you could have up to 30 stages. Well, if you have different branches, each branch stage counts. So if you have 5 stages in the first branch and then 5 in the next one, that does get you up to 10. So there can be a little bit of limitation when you start going through conditional branching. Does anyone have any questions? Well, if not, I will let you guys all get back to the rest of your day. I thank you so much for attending today's webinar, and we'll talk to a lot of you again on the next CRM one. Thank you and have a great day.